Hello, today we're going to be looking at Hebrews 8, 1 through 6, and we're going to continue the argument of Jesus' priesthood and its significance from the last section from chapter 7. He's going to start off this section similarly to the way that he did last time in 7:11. Now, right, the point in what we are saying is this. We have such a high priest, right, so he's going to focus on Jesus' priesthood still, one who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven. That's where Jesus is positioned. And what is he doing there? Well, from last time, he's interceding on behalf of his people. And because he lives forever, he lives to intercede. He's always interceding. And he's at the right hand of the Father. This is a place of rule. It's where his session is happening, his ruling, and it's where his intercession, his pleading for his people is happening. And it's going to describe him as a minister in the holy places. So that's where Christ is. He's in heaven, in the real, true holy places, in those true holy places, in the true tent that the Lord set up, not man. What does he mean by tent? What's he contrasting there? Well, the tabernacle, right? The other tent that was there, the tabernacle. So the true tent that the Lord set up, not man, right? So notice the similar language. This is God's doing, not human doing, like he talked about in the previous chapter. For every high priest is appointed to offer gifts. That's what they do. They offer gifts and sacrifices. They are the ones who make the offerings. Thus, it is necessary for the priest also to have something to offer. So Jesus has something to offer, just like any priest would. Now, if he were on earth, if his priesthood was earthly, if Jesus' priesthood were earthly, he would not be a priest at all, since there are priests to offer according to the law. So there's already an earthly manifestation of this idea. So Jesus wouldn't be needed if that's all that was necessary. Those priests, those priests serve a copy and a shadow of the true, right? So he's used that language, the true tent, right? The thing that God has set up. They serve as a shadow, contrast that with the true, of the heavenly things. For when Moses was about to erect a tent, he was instructed by God, saying, "See that you make everything according to the pattern that is shown to you on the mountain." So if you remember at the end of the book of Exodus, Moses goes up on the mountain and he receives he receives from God how the tabernacle is supposed to be constructed, and the bronze altar, and all of these other things, how sacrifices are supposed to be made. All of the institutions for the old covenant reality of life for the Israelites as they're leaving Egypt and about to enter in the land. We see this language also used in Numbers and Numbers 8:4, Acts 7:44, similar language to this, where Moses is constructing things according to the pattern that was shown to him. So for when Moses was about to erect the tabernacle, he was instructed by God, do everything according to my design, basically, that was shown to him on the mountain. Of course, that mountain is Sinai. Verse 6, as it is, Christ has obtained a ministry that is as much more excellent than the old, so here's talking about the old covenant, as the covenant that he mediates is better, since it is enacted on better promises. So here he's going to really move the argument not just to Jesus' priesthood, but to Jesus' covenant, and how the old covenant, right, he's going to start using the language of obsolete versus the new covenant. This is language that's used a lot in the New Testament. So we could look at a text like 2 Corinthians chapter 3, where Paul talks about how the Old Testament is passing away. The Old Covenant is passing away. It still has authority in the fact that it comes from God, and God's eternal character and nature is found in many stipulations in it. But there's a new covenant that we have. Ephesians 2 talks about this. Romans 7 talks about this. Galatians 2 and 3, actually 2 through, all the whole book of Galatians talks about this. And 1 Timothy 1 talks about how the law is good if one uses it lawfully in accordance with the gospel. And Jesus talks about this in Matthew 5, right? Starting in like verse 17 through it's verse 20 something. So like through verse 22. And when he's talking, he says that he did not come to abolish the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them. And that's what Jesus came to do. He came to fulfill the law and the prophets. He came to bring about a new covenant through the fulfillment of all of these covenant promises that God had made through the ages. And so that is what is going to be the focal point as we move on into other texts in Hebrews 8.